And welcome to another podcast with Neuworldz, Inspirations and Aspirations. Joining us today is author Robert Kelley, who has had many years in art and literature, and he has taken up his love for art and literature with writing. And his book, In the Glade, is really making news with a lot of features getting all across the media with his amazing work in science fiction. So, over to Robert Kelley. Robert, welcome to Inspirations and Aspirations with New Worlds. It's great to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And tell us more about your book in the Glade. It has been really doing great rounds in the news. So tell us more about it.
Yeah, I'm very happy with the response that the book has been receiving. I came up with the idea a few years ago. I've always had a love for mystery and science fiction. Um, and I wanted to come up with a story where I could combine the two. And I believe I've done that with this book. I've always been since I was a child, just a huge fan of mysteries, shows like In Search of, Unsolved Mysteries, things like that. Also, authors such as Graham Hancock, Charles Hapgood, Jim Willis, other authors like that touch on uh, ancient civilizations, the humanity's hidden history. Those just really fascinate me, and they go into ancient civilizations such as ancient Egypt, Sumeria, Indonesia, all over the world. And so I wanted to develop a book that combined my love of history, mystery, and science fiction, and kind of put that together. And I believe that I've accomplished that. So I'm happy with the outcome.
Wow, that is fantastic. And your style of writing is being inspired, like you said, with it's a mix of history and mystery coming together. So it's really interesting. How are you seeing the response of the people who are reading your book? We see you got featured at Times Square. We see you got featured across a lot of media like Fox News and the New York Ledger and all. Amazing feat already. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, that's a complete surprise to me. Um, I when I wrote the book, I just was writing a story from the heart and just wanted to write the book. I was not expecting the reception that it's received, and the overwhelming sentiment that a lot of people are saying is they love the blend of the mystery, the science fiction, and the philosophical, and it's a unique in that aspect. It's not like your typical science fiction story where there's aliens that come and there's like a huge like battles with spaceships and lightsabers. It's not like a Star Wars or a Star Trek. It hits on a more philosophical, deeper level, and it goes into talking about humanity's true history and Earth's place in the cosmos is the underlying theme within the book. And I think that's an aspect that people really have grabbed onto and really like because those concepts, those topics have really hit the mainstream as
Yeah.
far as specials, Netflix series, books that have come out by various other authors. And it's really causing people to take another look at the human story, where we come from, how long have we been here, where are we going? And I wanted to tap into that. And I believe that I have. So I'm very happy with the results.
Yes, definitely. So we are hearing a lot of good, audience, reviews about it. For those who have not yet read but interested in reading, tell us a little glimpse of the story in the Glade.
Well, it's about a young boy named Brendan who's a 12-year-old, very unassuming character. He's not your typical hero figure that you would find in the story. He's not some big, bulky, crime fighter or investigator. He's a
Just another
shy,
boy next door.
yeah, exactly.
Just another boy
He's a
next door.
very shy, very introverted boy. He's gets bullied at school, and The Glade is it's a place where he goes to where he can be by himself, kind of lose himself to find himself. He feels safe there. And that ironically is where he has his first contact with this otherworldly entity. And throughout the story, you follow Brendan on this journey with this entity. And throughout the story, he is trying to understand why the entity is there and why the entity has chosen him to reveal itself. And as the story progresses, there's other entities or other forces that are trying to get their hands on this entity, the military, authorities, scientists, because they believe it's here for nefarious reasons, whereas Brendan believes that it's not here for nefarious reasons. He believes that it's here to pass on some kind of cosmic knowledge, and his his parents, he's able to talk to them, convince them of the same. So throughout the story, he is doing everything he can to protect this entity, but also find out why the entity is here. And throughout the story, it's kind of like there's breadcrumbs that kind of lay out what the ending is going to be, and the true purpose of the entity's visit is revealed at the end of the book.
And I'm pretty sure you're not revealing that because that is
Right,
for the
absolutely not.
readers to read. But we're very intrigued and we're very interested to know about the kind of writing that you're always inspired by, and the more kind of these stories that we can expect from you.
What the My first book that I wrote rather quickly, and with this book, I wanted to really focus more on the characters and really uh, develop the characters, develop the atmosphere that the characters lived in, where the story took place, and I really focused on that a lot. And I've heard about that in quite a few of the reviews talk about this, uh, the environment, the atmosphere of the Glade, and how they feel like they're there. And that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted not only the characters to be alive, but I wanted the setting to also be to come alive as well.
Mm-hmm.
And for the readers to actually feel that too.
Who were some of these writers that has inspired you when you were a child? So, their kind of writing, you see your writing is basically an influence of their impressions upon you.
Well, some of the writers that really influenced me, and I acknowledge a few in the very beginning of the book. One is Graham Hancock, who he has devoted probably the 30, 40 years of his life researching what I bring up and is the underlying theme of this book. And it's with ancient civilizations, humanity's lost history. Uh, Books like that really fascinate me. And Graham Hancock's written, I mean, he's really devoted a lot of his career to that, and is, for the most part, the foremost expert, in my opinion, in that field. Other writers that influenced me were like Michael Crichton. I always found it very fascinating, writers that could write a book such as like Jurassic Park and then turn right around in their next book and write a book like Disclosure. Completely different feel, uh,
Mm-hmm.
in that same mystery genre, but just completely different. So with my first book, it was a mystery thriller, but it took on the music industry. In this book, I kept with that mystery genre, but with a scientific, science fiction aspect. And with my writings going forward, I'm going to continue in the mystery genre, but with each story I write, I kind of tackle a different topic. So it's not all of my books are science fiction. They're not all just basically like, crime or having to do with like religion or anything. They're kind of all over the place, but they stay within that mystery genre.
In the mystery genre.
Yes.
So, Robert, you have been in the profession of being an art dealer for a very long time. You had your galleries, you had been dealing with art a lot. So there's mystery and there is a story in art. So
Yes.
you have always been amidst a lot of art and storytelling.
Yes.
So and art is also mystery because you never know how an art will be perceived by one person as by another. I mean, each person has their own way of looking at and perceiving the same art. Is this also an inspiration that has seeped into your style of writing, where you look at different kind of stories and art and you bring that in your pages?
Yes. Like as far with artwork, my favorite period of art are the abstract expressionists, artists like Klein and Frankenthaler, Jackson Pollock, because you're able to look at their work and everybody's going to see something different. It's like abstract art, like impressionism, realism. I mean, what you see is what you get. That's, you know, what you're looking at. I like more the abstract work because everybody's going to see something different. So, like with this book, there is an underlying theme which people get, but it's interesting in the reviews what the different things that people pick out, the different characters, the meaning of the glade, how it's very symbolic of Brendan himself, and it's the glade is almost like a metaphor. Brendan feels very safe in the glade, but around which the glade, the woods, that's the unknown. And that's really speaks to who Brendan is as a character. He feels very safe and secure when he's by himself, when he's alone. But the world around him is what causes anxiety. And that is very much the same with a glade. If you're standing in one, you feel very safe and secure, but then the woods and the forest around you can be quite terrifying.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so that's one way in which art has kind of leaked into the pages of my books.
Also, it's very interesting and it's very philosophically interesting because in your book you talk about this boy who's an introvert who is like getting bullied by by other folks in his school, but he probably when he meets this outer entity who's like an alien, and
Yes,
they find friendship. Is this also a way of reflecting into the human mindset and psychology that we often get judged a lot by people around us, but sometimes when we just open up, like we just make ourselves like an open book without judgment, it is that's where we actually find um, people with more like-minded thoughts and feelings and emotions, even though they might be completely different than us. Is that something?
absolutely. And with Brendan, it very much mirrors humanity and how psychologically we view the unknown. And anxiety is really, the bottom line is, um, the clearest definition. Anxiety really stems from the fear of the unknown. So when Brendan sees this entity, he's very, very much riddled with anxiety and fear at first because he doesn't know why this entity is here. He doesn't know what it is, where it comes from, what its intentions are. And during the course of the story, as he gets more and more familiar with this entity, he realizes the entity is not here for nefarious reasons. And that's echoes so much, or in mirrors so much of civilization, the real
Human.
world,
Yes.
is when we see people that aren't like us or from another culture, a lot of times we're very apprehensive, we're prejudiced, we're judgmental. And the reason being is because we don't understand. And a lot of times we don't take the time to understand.
Understand, correct.
And so in this story, I let Brendan understand, take the time to understand, and that changes his mind. And that is the arc of his character. He goes from being very shy, very introverted, very almost scared, to towards the end of the book, he has confidence. He knows what he has to do. and he has a confidence to do it. And he's grown from, even though the story takes place over a couple of weeks, he's he's leaped years from just being this very scared little boy to being almost like an adult mentally, with knowing what he has to do with the knowledge that was passed on to him.
That's beautiful. That is actually very beautiful, the way you have brought up such a deeper philosophy, such a deeper outlook of life in a book which is about science fiction. I mean, the two things don't really, sometimes we don't understand how the two things come together, but that is exactly where your expertise is, that you have been writing about that. So we saw you get featured at Times Square, and you were right there when you were getting
Yeah,
featured.
that
What
was
was the
very
fan
exciting.
following like?
That was very exciting. Very unexpected, but it was very surreal. Just standing there and seeing your picture in, what they call the crossroads of uh, America. Just um, yeah, it was really something else. Very surreal.
So what are the new books that you're thinking of? So what kind of inspirations are you drawing for the new work that is coming up for you?
Well, I'm currently working on a book that, again, it's in the mystery genre, but it has a bit of a gothic and religious undertone to it. It has very much a gothic feel to it. So, again, as I was saying before, I stay in that mystery genre, but I tackle a different topic. So in this one, it's uh, almost reminiscent of like a Dan Brown book, who wrote Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, and many other books, where it touches on religion without being overly religious. It's more of a mystery. And so this book does that. That's kind of where I'm leading. And with each story that I write, I like to take on a certain topic. So uh, with my first book, it was the entertainment industry. With In the Glade, I'm taking on um, humanity's hidden history, ancient cultures, things that will open up people's minds. And then in this next book, I am taking on religion. And then I've already got another book planned after that. So each book is unique in how I take on each particular topic that I choose to take on at that particular
Yeah.
time.
So are you ready to take over the world with your writing and inspiring everyone with the kind of work that you're doing? Because this definitely goes beyond just a certain culture or geography. It's all across, right? Everyone would just love reading it. So how do you see Robert Kelley, the author, in say 3 years or 5 years from now?
Well, I just like writing, and if people like reading my books, that's even better. Um, and I like to write stories that I would like to read, and so it's stories that interest me. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, that's kind of an interesting story in my brain. That's how I think, and so then I'll write it. And if people get it, great. If they don't, that's okay. Um, there'll always be another book after that. So, but like I said, I love to write stories that I would like to read myself, because
Mhm.
that to me that makes the writing process that much more fun.
Yeah. Do you also see your writings become movies someday with the kind of stories that you're doing?
I'm sorry.
Do you see your stories on the big screen someday, like turn into movies?
I would love that. That would be fascinating. I think a majority of authors would love to see that. Um, and when I write, I write visually, so like I'm playing everything out in my head, and I think about it before I write it. I kind of play the scenes out, so it's almost like I have a movie going on in my head. But I think it would be fascinating and amazing to see one of my visions up on the big screen somewhere at some time. That would be great.
That would be nice. So, as we're coming more closer towards the end of this podcast, Robert, what kind of message do you have for your audience or the people who will be reading your book? What's your message for them?
Approach the book with an open mind, because that's what the book really, what my intention was in writing the book. A lot of what I read, um, whether it's speculative fiction, history, sometimes people will call it pseudo archaeology, where now it's that's not so much as a popular term. Um, but I like my readers to approach everything with the open mind, um, because I like to touch on topics that people don't see behind the curtain. And there's a mystery there with pretty much every aspect of life. And so with this story, there's like so many things that we were taught in life and in school and growing up about the human story is wrong. And mainstream archaeologists don't want to change it because it puts it's there are cracks in their narrative of what history is. And for some reason, they've become the gatekeepers of our history. So, what researchers like Graham Hancock, Jim Willis, Charles Hapgood have done over the years is they've opened up the door to the possibility that what we were taught isn't necessarily the truth. There are other alternatives. There's other theories out there that are gaining steam, gaining popularity, and like uh, humanity has been for the longest time believed to only be 6,000 years old. Well, now that's getting pushed back with the discovery of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. That pushed it back to 12,000 years. And then there's another discovery in Indonesia, Gunung Padang, which pushes it back 20,000 years. And they've recently discovered Homo sapiens. They have been on, basically we've been walking around for about 200,000 years. Well, now they've pushed that back to 100,000 years. So if you think about what we've accomplished in just the last 150 years, when it comes to science, technology, flying, the computer, the internet, what was accomplished in those 100,000, 300,000 years prior to that? And that's what the book does, is it gets you to think, if we accomplished so much in such a short amount of time, what were we doing with all that other time? How many times has civilization risen and fallen? And why has it risen and fallen? And these are the questions that I propose in this book.
In the book.
Yes.
That's a wonderful, beautiful way to plant seeds of thought in the minds of your reader, as much as you are entertaining them at the same time with your book, which, as you very beautifully said, it's got a glimpse of history, mystery, science fiction, and a whole lot to think about. So I think that is the success of your book already, that we understand and we can see, is because it's just not a start to finish, but it still lingers on in the mind of your reader even after they are.
And that's an overwhelming sentiment that I've received from a lot of people that have read and reviewed the book, is that it's a story that lingers with you long after you've turned the last page. Because my goal in writing it was to get people to open up their mind and think of the possibility, well, what if history isn't the way they've taught us? What if there were ancient civilizations that had risen and fallen for whatever reason, whether it's a global cataclysm, disease, some war, whatever? It gets people to open up their mind to the possibility that there are other answers out there, not just what we've been told. And what I propose in the book is backed up by science and can be read in other literature out there.
So it's a beautiful way into science and history brought together
Yeah,
in a storytelling manner, which is of course fiction on the surface, but it is fed with a lot of facts and figures and a lot of real history that gives the foundation of your story.
exactly. And what I bring up in the book, the theories, um, and just the alternative facts that I bring up, I could write an entire book based on that. And as I was writing the book, I started going in that direction, and I was like, wait, I was like, I could do a whole sequel just on that. I could write a whole book just based on ancient civilizations, ancient technology, lost civilizations, lost technology. I could write volumes on that because there is so much information out there, and every year they're making new discoveries all the time, and it pushes the human timeline and the human story back.
Yeah.
So, and I find that just absolutely fascinating. So, and hopefully my readers do too.
That's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful because yes, of course, I can tell that, something which has not only put in, you've not only put in so much of hard work, but you have put in so much of facts into the foundation of your story. I think the readers are already loving it. And I think the more they read, the more they are going to love more of your books, not just in the Glade, but more of the ones that's coming up in the near future, because I think your writing is very rich. Your writing is very it's very mature. It's very thought provoking. So it definitely leaves an impression where the reader wants to think about it. They definitely want to carry a lot of they want to think about it. It stays with them.
Yes.
It's just not a, oh, lovely book and we close the book. It's not just that. It lingers.
Right.
So I think
Exactly. And that was, like I
success.
said before, that was my goal going in, was to write a book that touched on topics that people normally don't think about, maybe have never thought about ever, and get them to think, well, what if, is this possible? Is Does the human story go back even farther? Were the ancient civilizations, were they the first? Is it possible there were older ones? Is it possible that the Egyptians didn't build the pyramids, that they were there when the Egyptians came into that region? There. So I just wanted to open up the possibility to get people to think, well, what if? And so, with doing a lot of research, and again, acknowledging other writers and
Mhm.
researchers, I'm just hoping that I struck a chord with my readers, that they find it as interesting as I do.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm very much sure about that. That is definitely very beautiful, way of writing and expressing. Well, for our readers who are and our audience who are interested in reading, if you are waiting to pick up a book that just doesn't touch your heart and mind, but also your soul, definitely give this book a read. In the Glade by Robert Kelley. Robert, where can we find your book? Where are all the places where your readers can pick up your book?
You can find it anywhere books are sold: Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's Kindle, iTunes, TikTok. Pretty much any. If you just Google it, pretty much anywhere books are sold, you'll find this book.
Well, that is fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Robert. I think this is just amazing. We loved
Thank
hearing
you.
about you, your book, and I wish you all the very best for many more beautiful things that would be created by you through the pages, like in the Glade, and many more to come. So I wish you all the very best, and it was absolutely a pleasure having you on New World's Inspirations and Aspirations. For our audience who are not yet aware of that, we at Neuworldz had the honor of honoring Robert Kelley with the Neuworldz Global Trailblazers 2025 for his continued contribution in the field of art and literature. And now you know why. So thank you so much, Robert. That was
Thank you.
Thank you so much.